Hey, this is Scott. I'm going to show you how to make a milk jug topsy-turvy planter for hanging your vining plants upside down to grow instead of right side up, sort of like the topsy-turvy that's ridiculously overpriced, and it only lasts you a season just like this will. So I'm going to show you how to make it yourself using just a simple milk jug. And if you're not familiar with the concept, what happens is instead of growing your plants right side up, you would hang them like this. Just imagine that the plant's on the top here coming out. You would actually hang it like this upside down so that the plant would actually grow downwards towards the ground instead of up. So, yep, my wife's asking me something. Be right with you. Sorry. So what you're going to need for this is a pair of gloves, because we're going to be using this heat gun, and this is made for paint stripping and wallpaper removal. You can use a hair dryer, it just takes longer. What we're going to do is actually melt this. Some of the stuff we're not going to melt it apart, but we're going to melt it so it's meldable and moldable. And then next you're going to need some twine. I just use regular baling twine, and that's twisted sisal. And you're going to need a knife. Make sure it's really sharp and be careful that you don't cut yourself. And then I use a black Sharpie. The first thing I'm going to do is melt this downward. Okay, so on this video I'm not going to show you how to do it. Look at the pictures for now because I don't have a tripod with me today. I'm going to melt this inward so that it looks like this. See how I melted that? And I also heated up the edge around the corners here. Heated that up, and I pushed the sides upward. So you can see it makes a funnel effect on the inside. Let me show you down in the center. The twine out of the way. See how it's made a funnel effect? So now that the dirt, it won't just run straight through. You'll actually have a place that will mound up around the roots of the plant. Now the roots will actually grow upward. Let me show you how that works. So imagine the plant's hanging down. The roots will actually grow upwards towards the top, opposite what we're used to seeing with the roots growing down. And it's more of a novelty for some people, but for me it's actually very handy because I got a huge deck. And I've got all this hanging room underneath my deck to put plants. And I love tomatoes and peppers. I make salsa, I make all kinds of sauces and stuff. So with tomatoes and peppers, if I just grow those all season, and I really just can't have enough of those things. I just eat them all summer. And so this is how I do it, just by hanging up these plants and maximizing the room that nobody ever goes to anyways. That's where I have my composter. If you've watched my other videos for my black soldier fly larva, it's under the deck. It's relatively, it gets a lot of sun. It's on the south side. It's relatively windless on that part. We do get a lot of wind here, but seeing how it's on the south side, it's not directly facing west where most of our wind comes from. And it's, like I said, plenty of sun out there, and it's just wasted space, so that's why I hang it under the deck. And so after I make that, after I push this part in, you can see I also melt the handle down a little bit too so that it fits flat. Kind of my test is, will it fit flat on a surface like this, and how kind of level is it. Since it's hanging up, we don't care if it's super level, but just for purposes of cutting this part out, I like to kind of keep the bottom part flat so it's easier for me to work on the top. The next thing I do is, imagine that this is not cut yet. What I did is just traced around a little section. I just traced out the bottom part. Hopefully that'll hold up. So just imagine this was the piece that came out of here. What I did is I just traced it around with my black Sharpie, and I did it by hand. You don't have to be really fancy with this. Just trace it around by hand. Make sure that you leave room for the tabs. You can see that these tabs, I didn't cut it straight around here. I cut it like this. So I have little ears that hang off of each side. And what I do with the ears then, after I've cut the bottom piece out, then I take my heat gun once again and I melt these tabs upward. These dog ears are melted upwards. And when you're doing this, when you're using the heat gun, make sure you use your gloves because it does get really hot. And sometimes even with the gloves on, it's pretty warm. So it's a lot easier to work with than with gloves on. And the last step before I put the twine together is I take a metal screw. Just take a regular, this one's a deck screw. Just take a screw, heat it up with your heat gun. Make sure you're wearing your glove. And then just poke it through the ears on the center. So I just take it and I push it through each of the dog ears on the center of them. I'm not super precise. I don't measure anything out. This is all done by hand because when you're hanging it, the twine actually kind of levels itself out. The last step is I take approximately, I want to say it's about 12 feet of string, and you can adjust that size to what you need. And I just tie it up. I just take one long piece and I thread it through each of these holes. That leaves me one long piece that I bring out to the end. Then I tie off the end. Let's see if I can find it like this. It's hard to do this one-handed. So then I tie it off like this at the end. Just a simple regular knot. It's not a fancy slip knot or anything like that. It's just a regular old knot. And then I take each of these sections here and I pull them upward. Of course, I don't have my other hand available to hold it down, but I would pull these upwards and make it self-centered, self-centered, so that when I pick up on the entire unit, everything's nice and tight. These hang up underneath the deck, like I said, and it's pretty self-level. Now there's a lot of extra there because I didn't grab the last string, but hopefully you get the idea. I do have pictures of this also if you want to see those. And then one last thing about this: when you put your plant in, what you do is you take the dirt out and you just have the little root structure and the stem, and you stick it through here. And what I do is I put my finger through there holding the stem, and I fill the bottom part up with dirt. And then at the very end, if you'd like, if you have some shallow roots like herbs, so you can actually grow herbs upward, so you can have the tomatoes or the peppers aimed downward, and herbs or shallow roots plants growing upward from there. So you actually have two plants in there if you prefer. I did not do that this particular season, but it could be done because the roots will impact inside of here from the tomato or the pepper plant, and they'll work just fine with the herbs that are very short rooted anyways. Okay, so that's it for now. This is Scott signing out on how to make a milk jug into a topsy-turvy.